What's your creepy glitch in the Matrix story? Redditor51, I've had several moments like this. I would drop something, and suddenly, it ceased to exist. At one point I dropped a D100, a retextured 10-sided dice for use in calculating percentages, and it seems to have never existed. No furniture around, nowhere for it to hide, it was gone. Another moment is when my friend threw a card, and it went up, through a windowsill and landed on top. Everybody claimed it went around the front of the windowsill, but it went through and I know it. Redditor52, went with 2 friends to a condo they used only on the weekends. Myself and one of my friends were wearing sunglasses and took them off when we entered the condo. Because it was not a primary residence, furnishing was sparse. Couch, coffee table, dining table, a loft bedroom with a bed, dresser, nightstands, and that was pretty much it. We put our weekend bags away and then got ready to leave for lunch, but my friend and I could not for the life of us find our sunglasses. The condo was tiny with only a handful of places to put something, yet, both pairs were missing. We gave up and went out to lunch. When we returned, everyone took a nap. I woke up with a start and found my sunglasses resting on my chest. This was in the loft bedroom, which was not anywhere near where I would have placed my sunglasses upon entering the condo. My friends were both completely conked out and snoring away. Can't explain it. My other friend never did find her sunglasses. Redditor53, back in 2004 I pre-ordered Doom 3, which came with a pewter figurine of the Mancubus. It was sitting on my desk one day when I reached out to grab something else and accidentally knocked the figurine off. I never heard it hit the ground and I never saw it again. Redditor54, was on a train listening to music, when I looked at what time it was. After listening to a 3-4 minute long song, I look at the time again and it's 10 minutes later. To this day, I still can't explain it and swear that I only listened to one song, not multiple. Redditor55, I once dropped a coin into my drink accidentally. So I poured the drink out in my sink to get the coin out, nothing. And I know it fell in there because it made a splash that landed on the table. Redditor56, I was around 8 years old, I was going out to my yard and someone had left the lights on. There was a sort of wall in my yard where you could hide and behind it there was something we used to store water to wash the dishes and clothes. I live in Latin America, so if someone knows what I am talking about, please tell me the name of that stuff in English. So that object was about 2 feet tall and I used to put my hands on the edge and balance myself. That night that I was going out I saw a girl balancing there just like I used to do. I looked closely and that girl was me. She was not wearing the same clothes I was wearing that day but something that I used to wear usually. She stared at me for what I felt was an eternity, then hid behind the wall to never come out again. I told my dad about that and we could never find an explanation to what happened.
P.D. Sorry if I made mistakes. English is not my first language.
Redditor57, I have terrible memory. Every single person I've met agrees with me. There are times when I can remember a very specific thing but parts will be missing, sound, body parts, etc. But every night I have insanely vivid dreams, wake up and hallucinate, am mega sensitive to people's feelings before they tell me, then go about my day like nothing happened. I swear it's helped me with so many things. That second paragraph, that is lol. Take this for example. Guest comes to where I work, her friend. Guest looks so tired, hunched over, and I'm getting Avery sad and unenthused vibe aura. Guest explains that they had been planning this trip since early on in the year, and a month ago to the day, her mother had died unexpectedly. She hasn't slept in a while, which I could tell. Her aches were palpable. I show her some stuff we have and let her know they'll help her relax and sleep better. Her friend thanks me and they schedule some appointments. I kept feeling like this lady and I needed to speak, but couldn't pinpoint it. Lady breaks down, out of nowhere, common for grieving. Anyways, they come back next day, and I had this feeling the entire night before where I just knew that I had to show this lady I understood her inability to cope. The frustration and sadness and loneliness. So I go to local grocery outlet and buy flowers. I was debating between roses and baby breath, and decide to get a bouquet of both with lilies too. I write down my favorite quote too, ever thine, ever mine, ever ours. It encapsulates what love is to me and I thought this lady would appreciate it. Anywho, lady comes out of treatment and lets me know she's headed back to her place early. I nod and hurry and give her the flowers and note before she could leave. She almost fell to the ground with emotion. Every single flower, down to the color, had been included in her mother's funeral wreath. And my middle name is Rose, her mother's maiden name was Rose. My favorite flower is baby's breath, her mother's fave flower was baby's breath. And the quote? It was also her mother's favorite. She thanks me endlessly and tells me, fate has the strangest way of working. Yeah, you ain't kidding, lady. Redditor 58 was walking one day. Saw this guy in a car. No problem. I saw the exact same guy in the same car about 20 feet away from when I first spotted him. Redditor 59, I've got two. When I was in my teens still living with my parents, my mom came home with groceries. I helped put things away. She told me to take 2 bags of cotton balls up to the bathroom. When I opened the drawer, one slipped out of my hand. These are fairly large bags. I looked everywhere and couldn't find it anywhere on the floor or in the drawer. Just gone. The second one was just a few weeks ago. A friend of mine wanted some glass pieces sandblasted with a design for his daughter who was graduating college. He gave them to me in a bubble envelope with paper towels between each piece. I distinctly remember them being a bluish color and slightly curved. I brought them to my job where I was going to do the sandblasting, and I opened the envelope and there's a single flat, uncolored glass plaque with beveled edges wrapped in a paper towel. I double-checked my emails with him and he only ever mentioned one piece. I thought I had somehow traveled to an alternate reality. I was so confused. Redditor 60, ever have it where you are talking or thinking about something, and all of a sudden you see in it real life or on TV? This happens way too much for me. Isn't there a term for this? Redditor 61, my socks keep glitching away. Redditor 62, I park about a 2-minute walk from my dorm, and I saw a girl sitting in her car on her phone in that lot. I walked along the road between my dorm and the lot, and had no cars pass me from that direction the whole time, but when I got to my dorm she was sitting in that same car, still on her phone, in the drop-off area. Redditor 63, I went to the same bank I usually go to in order to cash my paycheck. Have been going there for about 2 years now. Walked in the front door like I usually do and noticed there was double glass doors straight ahead that was a second entrance exit. Never noticed there was another entrance in the entire 2 years I've been going to that bank. I even asked the bank teller if the doors were new and installed recently. She confirmed that they have been there for years. Redditor 64, saw a butterfly completely disappear right in front me, like straight up fade from existence. Redditor 65, Mandela effect is 100% real. I remember him dying. I remember very distinctly reading an article on him post-death in one of the many encyclopedic collections I had. Sapo's leg changed colors around 1998. Mona Lisa was never smiling. Redditor 66, last time I baked homemade bread I was watching Twin Peaks, and so when I decided to bake some again I absent-mindedly hummed the theme tune. Anyway, I woke up the next day with the tune stuck in my head still. Left work on my lunch break and heard the theme playing over the radio in the shop I popped into to get something to eat. I fancied a Toblerone, but I was in a shitty everything is £1 shop where their own brand Toblerone was called Twin Peaks. Told my girlfriend and she just could not care less. Also the chocolate was horrible. Redditor 67, I was at a sleepover with a couple of my best girlfriends a couple years ago. It was about 1 a.m. and we were making brownies. All of a sudden I felt like I had just said goodbye to someone, like someone had just been picked up by their mom late at night because they for some reason couldn't stay. I felt this intensely enough that I felt like I almost remembered what this person looked like. Did someone just leave? I feel like someone was just here but they left, but I can't imagine who it could have been. Literally everyone had just felt the same exact way at the same exact time. Not one person said they didn't know what I was talking about. We were not a group that shared creepy stories. We didn't watch scary movies together. No one there would have made it up, or even thought of making it up. Sometimes I think of other times I hung out with that group and I feel like someone is missing even then. It sort of makes me want to cry. TL, DR, The Matrix ate my best friend. Redditor 68, my entire employment job's history is a series of coincidences. My first job, Worked for a guy whose brother had the biggest news site in the country. Then, on my next job, worked for a guy whose brother bought that news site from the brother of my first boss. This guy one day got beaten by some thugs at a construction site of the apartment he wanted to purchase. Turns out, the company I work for now also owns the company that is constructing that building. Also, he is good friend with my current boss, and at this same company work some of my college friends. I never knew until recent days. Redditor 69. I was playing dodgeball in gym class. You were able to get everyone on your team back in by scoring on the other team's basket with a certain colored ball. I had that ball, scored, went up to catch my rebound, and came back with a different colored ball. Redditor 70. Story time. One night I drank 2 40 ounces old English malt liquor and smoked like 4 blunts with my roommate and his girl. His girl asked me to take her back to her apartment on the other side of town. I'm pretty buzzed but not drunk. We get in the car and start driving and boom, first traffic light, Teresa cop in front of us. No big deal, right? Wrong. After the light changes, he drops back behind us and puts on his lights and pulls me over. Apparently it's a $400 fine to drive in the city with high beams on. Aw shit, there goes my rent money, I say. Officer says, where are you headed? I smell alcohol on your breath, sir. Have you been drinking tonight? I look over at my friend's girl, take a deep breath and say, yes sir officer, I had 140 ounces of old English malt liquor, my favorite drink, a little over an hour ago. I'm just taking my friend back to her apartment right down the street at insert address and going right back home. Officer now wants to breathalyze me. Great. My friend's girl is just looking at me like WTF. The officer returns and I blow. And he decides to let me go, saying get your girlfriend home then go straight home. And turn off your brights. Don't make me regret this. Yes sir officer, you got it, thank you sir. Here's the glitch in the matrix. We drive down to the next light and my friend's girl is saying holy shit, I can't believe that really just happened, wow WTF. I cross over the street and literally see 1 white horse, 1 brown horse, 1 black horse and 1 gray horse. All without riders, all walking down the street in a single file line. Mind you, this is at about 2 a.m. so there is no reason these horses should be there. I say either I'm way more ducked up than I thought, or I see 4 horses right in front of me. My friend's girl says holy ducking shit, I see them too. Teresa, white 1, a brown 1, a black 1 and a gray 1, and where the duck are there riders? We pass the horses and drop homegirl off at her place and we both kind of just sit there for a second, trying to process everything that just happened in the last 5 minutes. She gets out and goes home. I drive back home the exact same way I came and do not see any sign of the horses and get home safely. Where the duck did those horses come from? Redditor 71 was watching The Matrix, then halfway the movie it just stopped. Turned out it was a faulty DVD. Redditor 72, another one from when I was really young. So our friends had a cabin out in the mountains where it snows a lot, and it was winter time at this point, and there was this Sully from Monsters Incorporated toy. And all it would say was, I'm Sully. And someone kicked it and it stopped working when you press the button. And it would say I'm Sully randomly, so it was 1 a.m. and it went off with no one touching it. So in the morning all the kids took it and tied it to a tree, maybe 200 yards from the cabin. The next day it was back in the cabin. We tied it again to the same tree and it was time to leave. The next year we came back and went to check on it, and as we approached it, it said I'm Sully. Looking back on it, I feel like it appearing in the house was a prank maybe being pulled on us. I'm not sure. But the random talking was quite weird. And how it looked after all the snow and rain was grotesque, and the fact it still worked after that time. Bizarre. Redditor 73, it was the summer of 1996 and my mother had just picked me up from working at a local water park. We were talking a bit about how work was and the conversation died down. I reached over to turn on the car radio and said the world is a vampire. As I pressed the power button and the speakers crackled to life, the words I had just spoke came blaring through the car as the Smashing Pumpkins song started the exact moment I turned the radio on. I don't think I've ever seen my mom more freaked out. Redditor 74, this one time I was just chilling in my bedroom and a coat hanger went flying out of my closet and across the room. Scared the shit out of me. It was a plastic hanger, so I'm pretty sure it had been stuffed there and compressed into a weird position and then hit a certain level of tension and sprung back into shape, thus propelling it off of whatever it was snagged on, but I was a kid at the time and couldn't figure it out. I was certain that it was a poltergeist for like a year. Redditor 75, I live in an old house and has weird outlets and switches. One outlet is very old-fashioned with 5 places to plug in a cord, so I've noticed it since we moved in. I swear that outlet cover was brown, but it's been painted white. I asked my wife when she painted it cause it's not something she'd do normally. And she didn't do it. I don't know why I am so sure it was brown, but I can picture it in my head. Redditor 76, was walking down the sidewalk and joked with my friend imagining what would happen if a car just swerved into the sidewalk. A car swerved into the sidewalk and crashed. Redditor 77, I'm aware this is going to sound more literally glitch in the matrix than this topic is meant to be. This happened last week, so it's very fresh in my head. I can't quite explain it myself, and it's not something that's ever repeated itself or happened in my past. I was in an IT lab in my university, working on a presentation plan with a few people from my research group. A couple of tables across from our little workstation was another group analyzing a set of numerical data. Anyone who's used a Likert scale, e.g., rate your feelings on a thing from 1 to 10, knows that entering the data into your statistic analysis program of choice is a chore and usually consists of one member of the research team reading out a chain of utterly random numbers, whilst another enters them into the program. We didn't even have line of sight to this group, but eventually, after about 5 minutes of hearing these random bark numbers, my research partner suggests saying other, unrelated numbers out loud to mess with them. Pretty standard childish joke. So I start, because why not? I match the timing of the person reading the results, and initially it's all normal. She says 2, I say 6. And so on. However, after about a minute of doing this, we both say 4 simultaneously. I'm spooked, so I pause for a moment. She continues, 2, 5, 3. Both of us, again, simultaneously, 4. I pause again, and wait, she continues. Every time I interject, every single time, 4. I'm looking at my research team in disbelief. They're looking at me much the same way. We're all deathly silent and all wearing expressions that say what the duck dude, and for the next maybe 3 minutes, at a pace of around 2 numbers per second, every time I open my mouth to try and nail the simultaneous 4. It only stopped because someone in my research group eventually told me to cut it out because it was freaking them out. I'm not sure if I could predict the numbers, or if it was freakish coincidence. I feel the need to state again, these were not pattern numbers, they were utterly randomized. Edit, a word. Redditor 78, my wife and I were visiting my parents. When we left, I can only recall getting in the car and noticing we were 10 kilometers away. When I asked her if she reminded driving all the way until there, she said yes. And when I told her I didn't, she said I'd been speaking with her all the time. Redditor 79, I flew to an event once, rented a car while there. It had a ridiculously large, awkward key ring, so I wasn't about to carry it in the woods, and I zipped it up in my luggage instead. Campsite off in the woods, bunch of campers, etc. Anyways, it was a bit lame, and the two of us decided to drive out early. Except, the key for the rental car was gone. I was 100% confident I'd put it in the small front pocket of my suitcase, then zipped it shut. Well, it wasn't there. I checked the entire suitcase, not there. My friend checks his, not there. We both empty out every single thing, shake the suitcases with all pockets open, then repack one item at a time. Not there. We check each other's suitcases. Not there. The next day, after having had everyone even vaguely nearby search everywhere, I gave up entirely, and had a truck come out and haul us back with the vehicle at significant expense. Paid for the lost key replacement and everything. Upon getting home, I go to unpack, and unzip the small pocket first. Sitting there, with nothing else in the pocket, in obvious sight, is the key ring. To this day, I have no idea how that happened. Redditor 80, I don't know if this counts, but I'm sharing it anyways. My husband and I were driving down the highway and ended up behind a sedan. It looked like there was cloth draped over the driver's head, and I remarked, "It looks like a nun is driving that car." Later, when we were able to pass the car, we saw what had looked like a nun's habit was actually a dry cleaner garment bag hanging behind the driver's seat. Then we looked into the driver's seat and it was actually a nun driving the car. And there was literally no way we could have seen her from behind to know that she was a nun. I know this sounds like such a small deal, but it had me saying, what, for about a mile? Redditor81, sometimes I'll be watching a YouTube video and at a certain point I'll get some deja vu that I've watched that exact video before, but when I look at the upload date, the video was uploaded too recently for me to have seen it before. Redditor82, when I was a little human, I had a dog named Blue. Vivid memories of playing with this dog, him being near me and chasing me, playing fetch. He watched me poop in the sink in the basement with its dark greenish tiling. One day, the dog gnawed Uncle Jack. Ankle bite, drew blood. Dad said he would take care of it. Him and Jack and Blue went out for a drive. Blue and Jack didn't return. Now Uncle Jack was my dad's buddy friend. I have other memories of him and my dad. I can describe Jack and his single chrome bred single leather strap choker. I can describe Blue and his white coat corgi size husky tail. Dog had blue eyes. Neither of these two exist. Try as I may to describe them in full memories, either my family refuses knowledge and become Broadway method actors for this one shtick, or they weren't real. Redditor83, been waiting to tell this story. Not a huge deal, but I cannot understand. I take the train from the suburbs to the city every day. Right in the middle of fall, I'm taking the train home in the afternoon. Average day up until then. Beautiful sunny day, most likely mid-50s. Not a cloud in the sky and the sun was just beginning to set. Most of the time I'm on my phone or looking out the window. It was a nicer day that week, so I was looking out the window. The train pulls up to a stop and I'll usually observe the passengers leaving or getting on. As the train was pulling away, I saw a man and his family getting into their car. His wife was already in the passenger seat and he seemed to be putting his child in the back seat, perfectly normal. But this dude had a fucking umbrella. Fully open, fully covering himself. He held it over him the whole time like it was pouring rain. After he put his kid inside, he even ran around the car like he was avoiding getting wet. To make it even more strange, he sat in backwards and closed the umbrella outside the car, as you would if it was raining and you were covering yourself from it. The sun was shining on them the whole time. I don't think he was avoiding the sun, it wasn't that strong that day. Who knows, man? Redditor84, it had been years since I'd done psychotropic drugs. I'd also quit smoking weed for a year or so. Here it is, scored a bag of shrooms. Took M with a friend, felt shitty because I didn't share with more that we were hanging with that day. Couple of hours later, chilling at home, late evening. Friend of a friend shows up with a bag of weed. Not too sure I should tip the gentle balancing of chill I'm rocking. Decide to do it. First big drag and I spleef cough pretty horrendously. I immediately start assessing my house for which throne I will yarl in. I decide to go upstairs because it is out of earshot from anyone else currently in the house. Quickly go upstairs, shut the door behind me, lights off. Window in the bathroom is open but no one will be able to hear me. Kneel and pray. Stand to get air from the window and see a local town police cruiser head down the street toward the house. At this point I get exceedingly paranoid. I look down into the white toilet. In the dim light I can see what appear to be mushroom pieces in the shape of little black worms. They are all writhing. Super fucking freaked, I look out the window again to the road. See the same police cruiser roll by at the same speed. Redditor85, one day in class I realized that after the break, I've lost one part of one of the clip buckles on my backpack. Even told my classmates that if anyone sees it, it's mine. I was already pissed because I really liked this backpack and thought I wouldn't be able to close it properly again. I didn't find it and we decided to eat at Subway after school. I proceed to get my wallet out of my backpack and suddenly it was back there. Redditor86, I had a piggy bank in form of a chimney sweeper and one night it suddenly had a little rope on his chest. I swear to this day it wasn't there before. Redditor87, my daughter had a Furby that drove me crazy with its sounds whenever I walked by. She eventually tired of it and we put it in a box in the garage. Years later I was cleaning out the garage and when I picked up a box I heard the familiar Furby sounds coming from inside. I grabbed the little bastard and threw him in the van that I was loading up for the dump. I took the van to the dump and I remember picking up Furby and tossing him over the rail into the garbage pit. I drove home and there was Furby in the freaking driveway. Same Furby. Had a ribbon tied around its neck that my daughter put there years ago. Redditor 88. Once, I noticed, looking out of a bus window, passing by a woman wearing leggings with a distinctive paisley print that was pushing a pram aka a stroller and leading a Dalmatian puppy. After about a quarter of a mile later, I got off at my stop and saw, walking towards me on the pavement, a woman wearing paisley leggings, pushing a pram and with a Dalmatian puppy on a leash. At that moment, I was quite certain it was the same person, although it was physically impossible. So I either had a mild stroke or there was nasty bug in reality.exe that day. Redditor 89. I took a picture of my sister reading in an armchair and the wall behind her has wainscoting etc. It was a disposable Kodak camera and when the photos were developed there was no wainscoting, trim, or baseboard molding. It's not as major of a glitch as other people's experiences but it was definitely weird. Redditor 90. I used to be the manager of a small software development group. One of the women that worked for me came into work one morning, and had this surprised look on her face. She said, "How long have you had a beard?" I blinked a couple of times and then said, "For longer than I have been working here." She was absolutely sure that I had been clean shaven before that day. Redditor 91. I was riding an elevator down from my office to go home for the day. I get on at the 15th floor. The elevator stops at the 12th floor, and standing in the elevator lobby of that floor are two college-aged people, one male and one female. They start to walk toward the elevator and then stop and say they'll wait for the next one. The doors close, and the elevator stops at the 9th floor so someone can out. It stops one more time at the 5th floor, and there, standing in the elevator area, is the same pair I say standing literally 15 seconds earlier on the 12th floor. I still try to convince myself it was some weird visual trick or that I was mistaken, but no. Redditor 92. A pair of shoes went missing in my first apartment in the early 2000s. My ex had slept over and began getting ready to leave mid-morning, however his shoes weren't by the door in the shoe rack. We tore apart my one-bedroom apartment, which didn't take long considering its size. We checked the oven and inside the fridge and its compartments, the shower, in the toilet and even the cat's litter box. We opened the only door to the place to see if they were out on the porch. It had snowed during the night so there was a fresh light blanket of snow. No sign of the door opening, which would have moved aside the snow underneath the door, and no footprints up or down the stairs to my second-floor apartment in a house. We were absolutely stumped, resigned to the fact his shoes disappeared into thin air and that he would just have to leave without his shoes, bearing in mind it is winter and there is snow on the ground. We turned around and went back to the next room, which was the living room. We sat down to regroup and lo and behold, there were his shoes on the floor right in front of us, between our feet and the coffee table which had been pushed to the middle of the living room in the search. Literally noticed them at the same time and turned to look at each other, mouths open and dumbfounded. WTH? Redditor 93. Sometimes I can dream stuff that haven't happened yet. Redditor 94. I work at a psych hospital. I've got more of these, but here's one that happened after I took a patient out for an escorted smoke. When we got back inside, his nurse asked me if the patient still had his lighter on him. I'm supposed to take them away when we get back to the unit. I lied and said no because I didn't want to get in trouble and I figured I would just track him down on the unit and get it back from him. Fast forward an hour and I can't get to him. The nurses keep assigning me duties on the other end of the unit and I start panicking because if he gets caught with the lighter she'll know I lied. I frantically searched my pockets over and over, just in case I still had it, but there was nothing. He definitely still had his lighter. All of a sudden, I'm sitting there and I realize there's a lump in my pocket. I reach inside and the lighter is there. I finally get to talk to the patient and I ask him if he handed the lighter back to me without me noticing somehow. He said no and that he still had the lighter. He starts searching his pockets and can't find it. I pull the lighter out and show it to him. We both go, what the fuck, and then this new patient comes over who had been acting really bizarrely and he just comes up to us and says, the higher spirits can move between the frame rates. Redditor 95. So one night I went to bed. Woke up the next morning, everything was normal. Went to work, went home, looked for a new job because I hated the one I had. Regular stuff. Went back to bed. Next day, same stuff. Repeat. Eventually get a call about a job I applied to, have an interview in a couple days. Nailed the interview, get a much better job actually in the field I studied in school. Couple more days go by. Go out to some event or another, and meet a girl. We hit it off, I ask her out, she says yes. Things are going good. More days go by. Job is fine, but kind of boring. I think first date didn't go that well, but she wants to go out again. Second date goes much better. We continue dating. Eventually we decide to move in together. There are some fights and a lot of tension because we were not ready for living with each other. One night, about 6 months or so after that first night I mentioned, I go to bed. I say goodnight to her and fall asleep, and then I wake up alone. Back in my old apartment. 6 months earlier. No new job, no girl, nothing. None of it happened. But I lived it. It wrecked me that day. I could barely function, I was so disoriented and confused and depressed. 6 months just gone. Never happened. Redditor 96, I can't find a photo I could have sworn I had. I thought I had a photo with someone that I met years after it was taken, but I can't even find a photo similar to it on my hard drive. Redditor 97, so when I was really young we went to Mount Rainier in Washington, and a ranger gave my sister a little pin. I don't remember it, but I remember the pin. She stuck it to this fabric wall thing where it stayed for 2 years and I was now 5. And I was in my sister's room and she was talking to her friend about Mount Rainier and the legend of Bigfoot. And all of a sudden this thing pops off the wall, like not just down, but down and out from the wall. Out of any time for that to happen it was as we were talking about it. Regrettably we smashed it with a hammer because we thought it was cursed. To this day I wish we still had it. It's one of those things I wonder about to this day. It scared my sister so much she cried when it happened and they both screamed and ran out of the room. Weird. Redditor 98, one time back when I was in 2nd grade, I was sitting with a group of friends in our classroom doing normal elementary activities. I'm only 17, so back when I was in 2nd grade in 2008 the song Baby by Justin Bieber was hot shit. So when I was sitting there I got the sudden urge to sing the intro while one of my friends also randomly started singing the intro at the exact same time. And when I say it was the exact same time I mean it. He wasn't trying to copy me or mock me or anything. We were just sitting and both did that, which caused us to look at each other in complete shock. Pretty sure that kid and I are mentally connected. Redditor 99, a few years ago I met a guy through a friend while I was visiting from the town I lived 6 hours away at a pseudo-music camping festival in San Marcos. My friend, him, and I end up taking mushrooms and spend most of the night sharing what we all thought were very profound thoughts about life and listening to music. This song comes on by this band I liked a lot in high school, and then the guy said that he was also a big fan. We talked about our memories of them, and he said that covers some of their songs with his band when he's not doing this 80s cover band gig in Austin. That's when I had this huge wave of deja vu. I asked him if they performed at a bar on X Street and he said yeah, and then it dawned on him and I that we had had this exact conversation about this band at that same bar in Austin after his show 4 years prior when I was in town. Wild. Redditor 100, this happened when I was very young, maybe 6 years old, I can't remember. I went shopping with my parents and grandparents. We went to a toy shop and I was allowed to pick one toy to take home. I decided on a Polly Pocket set with various new clothes for the dolls. When we got back to my grandparents' house I sat on the carpet and unpacked my new toy to play with it. While playing I dropped one of the clothes and it fell out of my field of vision. I looked down and it was gone. Little me got very upset and my dad tries to help me find it. We checked everywhere, and I mean everywhere. We even looked under the carpet I was playing on. It was just gone. I'm now 19 and I still wonder where it went. Redditor 101, my girlfriend and I were discussing glow-in-the-dark star stickers one night at like 4 in the morning. Never talked about them before, nothing. A few days later, she receives a package. The label has my name on it, my phone number, and her address. Inside are glow-in-the-dark star stickers from some super obscure Vietnamese shipping company. I didn't order the stickers, and neither did she. They came about a day and a half after we discussed them. Still freaks me out to this day. Redditor 102, at school in the 3rd grade, when there was an announcement over the loudspeaker that there was a bomb threat. Everyone thought it was a drill, but we had to walk to the evacuation spot anyway. The teachers looked worried but were trying to hide it. Some kids snuck off in the confusion and no one noticed except me. I didn't think it was a big deal because I thought it was a drill. We waited at the evacuation spot for about half an hour, and then the teachers were whispering frantically to each other. One of the teachers had a megaphone and started asking where 2 of the boys were, the ones who had snuck off. Nobody knew and I was too embarrassed to say that I saw them but hadn't told anyone. The teachers were trying to keep everyone calm but their faces looked freaked out, and that's when we knew it wasn't a drill. 2 of the teachers went off to look for the boys. I don't know how much time passed, but we heard the bomb go off. Both girls and boys were crying, everyone was super scared. There were tons of emergency vehicles at the park and no one found out until days afterward that the 2 boys had snuck back to the school. One had died and the other was seriously injured to the point of needing to go to intensive care. He later needed a leg amputation. 2 days later, I saw the dead boy walking with his parents in the grocery store. He wasn't injured in any way. It was either an elaborate fake death for witness protection or something, or the Matrix was buggy that year. Redditor 103, our glitch in the Matrix. Redditor 104, once I was lying in my bed and I dropped my phone onto my bed and I went to pick it up and it was gone. I started tearing my bed apart to find it very neatly placed on the dresser next to my bed. At that point I thought it's probably best I get some sleep. Redditor 105, found a 1978 Eisenhower dollar coin on my bedroom floor when I woke up one day, asked my family if they had dropped it or seen it recently. None of them had seen it or seen a dollar coin like that in a good while. It's 1pf my lucky coins now and I carry it everywhere if I have pockets. Apparently it's worth $20 to coin collectors. Redditor 106, boyfriend I took a trip to Puerto Rico. We go to the car rentals to get our car booked. We briefly take notice of 4 people they're always booking a car. Next day, we are at the beach 2 hours away from airport, not a well-known area, and we saw the same 4 people. We thought, oh what a coinkidink. Next day, we go to the rainforest, hike up to a tower, we see the same 4 people. The following day we drove to another city, and you guesses it, we saw the same 4 people again. Redditor 107, I found a ring, a black cheap dollar store ring, when I was in elementary school. I have that ring to my girlfriend, obviously we broke up like 3 days later, elementary relationships only last a week at most, the point is I found that ring on my bedside dresser a couple weeks later. Confused and not really wanting it I threw it away. A couple years later in middle school it shows up on my dresser again. I'm out of high school now and I still have the ring because I think I'm bound to it. Redditor 108, in high school I had a class that stopped in the middle for a lunch break. When we came back from class, my best friend and I noticed a tiny door between our desks. We made a big deal out of it, both saying, where did that tiny door come from? It was in the wall right between our 2 desks and it hadn't been there before we left for lunch. We weren't gone any longer than 30 minutes. The other students thought we were just making jokes to postpone any actual learning, but not that time. And it's definitely something I would have noticed. That was 18 years ago, and she's the only person I'm still good friends with. I say it's because we're the only 2 people left from the alternate reality in which there was no tiny door, because dude, there was no tiny door before we left for lunch. TLDR, a tiny door appeared while we were gone for lunch. Redditor 109, I came home from a quiet gathering at a friend's house and reached into my pocket, felt my phone in there. Something felt different about it so I take it out and examine it. It is an almost brand new version of my LG flip phone, which I had recently broken but was still using. This was in 2014, well after the age of ubiquitous smartphones, so flip phones aren't all that common or easy to come by. And this particular model is out of production. I looked through the contacts, tracked down the owner and he says he lost that phone a year ago and doesn't want it. I talk to all of my friends, actually pretty much everyone I know, and none of them have any idea what I'm talking about. Years went by and no one ever fessed up to putting that phone in my pocket. Another time, I misplaced my keys in the same jacket pocket, after walking in my room and tossing jacket in closet. I figured they fell out in my closet. It was a mess. I looked for a while but gave up and started using my spare instead. I frequently misplace things and they always turn up, so I wasn't really worried about it. 6 months go by, I decide to move my room into the basement, and empty that closet completely in the process. No keys. 6 months after that, I am walking in from outside on the other end of the house, through a room I use frequently, and notice a set of keys on the middle of the fucking floor. Sure enough, it's the same set I lost a year before, except the carabiner, which used to be blue, is now a shade of metallic brown, as if it had been in the sun forever or cross dimensions or something. Again, talked to roommates and everyone who had been at the house that week, even the sprinkler guy. No one had any idea. Redditor 110, after I read Andy Weir's The Egg super short story, I began to see reflections of myself in other people. It simultaneously freaks me out and gives me a strong feeling of profundity that shakes me to my core. If you haven't read it, I suggest you do. It's a 5-minute read. I'm fairly certain the "we are all one" philosophy is actually true, physically. I really like what Tegmark say, we're all just blobs of quarks. You, me, this chair. The only difference is the pattern. Redditor 111, I've always had a thing for technology. Things seem to just work for me. I was in the car with my family, sister, dad and dad's wife. I was in the front with my dad and the others in the back. They were arguing and I remember thinking really hard for the radio to turn on, and the next second the radio blasted out on a high volume. Everyone in the car just looked at the radio in surprise. Another one was my friend's phone wasn't working. Her BF had a look at it the whole day and she took it to a tech store. As soon as it passed into my hands, the screen lit up and was working fine again. As happened with multiple computers and laptops that I haven't had the knowledge to fix, it just seemed to work. Redditor 112, Monday morning on December 4, 2017, me and my girlfriend leave the apartment building and walk towards the street. We both stop dead in our tracks and look at the same thing. We are both looking at it and looking at each other. So I say, there is something weird, right? She answers, yes. I say, it's that tree, right? Yes, she says. It wasn't there before, right? I say. No, it wasn't, she answers. So we are both there looking at that tree. I even walked around it to check if the ground was disturbed, to see if it could have been planted over the weekend. The lawn is undisturbed and the tree is relatively mature. Who would plant a tree in December anyway? I have been living there for 17 years in the apartment building next door. Every couple of years plants a tree there, but it is always gets crushed by the snow plow, and winter 2017 was a record year for snowfall. There is no way the tree was there for a couple of years. If it would only have been me, I could convince myself that I am misremembering, but we both reacted the same way at the same time. Redditor 113, okay, so one time I went to my psychologist's office, and there were windows that let us see a hall. Next time I'm there, there's no windows. I'm like, Mom, where did the windows go? And she's like, there were never any windows, are you okay? Then the third time I am there, the windows are back. Redditor 114, one time my family and I were all sitting at the kitchen table in the house we'd lived in and owned for 9 years. For backstory, my mom is silly and doesn't buy typical useful decorative house things like blinds or curtains, and her husband doesn't either. We were all sitting around when I looked out the window I've looked out 10,000 times before. That's when I noticed it. Mom, what is that? I pointed to the top of the window and it's like a light clicked on in all of our heads. There were red blinds on the window, they were up that nobody had ever noticed before. I swear to God they didn't exist before that moment. It was an entire family what the fuck moment. Nobody had put them there. They either magically appeared or were all so blind that we collectively never noticed. Red, copper-lined blinds on the window in the entry of our dining room where everyone spends all their time. We'd even painted the walls recently. Redditor 115, my brother has always been a strange one. I have many tales of him breaking the laws of physics, But this was the weirdest one. When he was a baby, had just learned to crawl, there was one night where we couldn't find him. We searched the whole house twice or 3 times, not a single hint. Getting desperate, I decided to check out front. I came around the front of the house and found him halfway down the driveway. Let me tell you why this had to be a glitch. It was obvious he had come from the garage. The front door had been locked and in plain sight of us. Only we couldn't explain how he got into and out of the garage. The door from the inside of the house to the garage was a heavy beast of a door with a sticky handle that he couldn't reach even if he was standing, and it had a spring on it so that it would close firmly unless it was propped open. My mom was a bit of a craft hoarder, and half the garage was piled 5 feet high solid no way past with bolts of fabric and boxes. They had not been disturbed. As for the rest of the garage, my dad ran a side business blowing glass neon signs. The entirety of the ground that wasn't covered in sharp tools was covered in broken glass. My dad did always leave the front of the garage cracked, maybe a foot open though. Somehow my not even 2-year-old brother had opened a door I had trouble opening at 7, traversed the horror show that was the garage, and made it down the driveway with bare hands and legs. And without a single scratch or scuff on him. It baffles us to this day.